Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media and the community of Bermuda. The Bermuda Police Service can now confirm the identity of the person whose life was taken yesterday in this brazen act of criminality as Miss Janae Miners. I take this opportunity to extend my condolences to her family and her loved ones during this very difficult and tragic time. This situation, as I previously stated, should be cause for grave concern for all the residents of our island. While it's clearly the responsibility of my team and me to bring those responsible for this heinous act to justice, there are persons out there who may not be involved, but know who is behind it or what has happened. You have a responsibility to this community, to this island, to our people, to share that information with us. We are focusing all resources, stretched though they may be, on this investigation. There has been heightened police presence in North Hamilton as we seek to bring calm and provide reassurance to the community. That heightened police presence will also be apparent across the island with an increase in already stepped up stop and search activity. The public can expect to be inconvenienced by this activity. This is necessary to ensure we utilize every lawful opportunity and power available to us to stem the tide of criminality being perpetrated on our peace-loving community by a very small group of individuals. My officers and I are committed to this effort, and there will be other measures implemented in the coming days and weeks to augment our efforts. I'd like to now ask the Minister of National Security, Mr. Michael Weeks, to share some comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. First, let me thank the Commissioner and the Bermuda Police Service for inviting me here today and for the work they are doing in response to this tragedy. Yesterday, I went to the scene near Court Street to see for myself the impact of this latest act of violence. Later that evening, I visited the victim's family at the hospital to offer my condolences and support on behalf of the government and the people of Bermuda. Another life has been taken, and my heart is with her loved ones and with a community that is once again grieving. I want to express the government's full support for the police investigation. The Premier has asked me to ensure that all resources necessary are provided to those whose job it is to keep our community safe. We will stand behind the service with every lawful tool they need to identify and bring to justice the persons responsible. I also want to encourage anyone who has information, no matter how small, to come forward, whether directly to the police or through Crime Stoppers. This goes for any other crime. Sharing what you know can make all the difference. As Minister, I have been meeting regularly with the police leadership, community partners, and colleagues across government to address the deeper cause of the violence. We are working in a coordinated way to prevent young people from being drawn into crime, to support those already at risk, and to ensure that law enforcement efforts are well-resourced and intelligence-led. This is difficult work, but it is essential if we are to stop the cycle that has led to tragedies, like this one we are speaking about today. I know that many in our neighborhoods are tired, worried, and even fearful after seeing yet another shooting so soon after the recent double murder in the same area. I understand that. But I also know that Bermudians have a long history of resilience and care for one another. If we stand together, residents, community leaders, and government, we can make our streets safer and give our young people hope for a better future. Finally, I again extend my sympathy to the family of the woman who lost her life. And I thank the police officers and first responders who continue to serve this island with dedication. We must all do our part, remain calm, remain cooperative, and remain committed to ending the violence that threatens our community. Thank you.
As mentioned, we are here today under very distressing circumstances following another tragic incident that has deeply impacted our community. At approximately 4:45 p.m. yesterday, Tuesday, September 16th, a lone gunman entered a liquor shop on the corner of Court and O'Donnell Street, Pembroke, and shot a female inside the premises. Emergency services were on scene quickly, and first responders made every effort to save her life. She was transported to hospital, but tragically, she succumbed to her injuries a short time later. The 37-year-old victim, Ms. Janae Myers, was a mother of two, ages 16 and 18, and she has been described as a hard worker with a vibrant, beautiful personality. It is extremely tragic and heartbreaking that she has lost her life in this manner. This incident is particularly troubling as it occurred on the same busy street where the fatal shooting of two other individuals took place just over a month ago. Understandably, this has reignited fear and concern among residents and business owners in the area. We know that the safety and well-being of our community is being tested, and we want to assure the public that a full and thorough investigation is underway. Detectives from the Serious Crime Unit are actively pursuing all leads, and we are working to identify and locate the individual responsible. What we know thus far is that a single person rode onto Court Street, parked a cycle on Court Street, and walked to the shop, which is located at the corner, went inside and opened fire, shooting the victim and killing her. The suspect then returned to his cycle on Court Street and made way north on Court Street towards TC. What we could say is that the suspect is believed to have been wearing a black jacket, gray sweatpants, and a black helmet, and bright colored gloves. A CCTV troll is in progress to track the movements of the suspect. The cycle used in the attack is confirmed to be a stolen vehicle, and we are pursuing that lead. And the scene has been processed and certain items seized by our forensic support unit for further forensic examination. We are asking anyone who may have seen anything suspicious in the area around the time of the incident, particularly between 4:30 and 5:15 on September 16th, to come forward. The Court Street is a generally busy area. There are people leaving work, there are people attending restaurants and shops, there are people driving through. So we want to hear from you if you were in the area and may have seen something. As mentioned by the minister, any information, no matter how minor it may seem to you, can be vital to the investigation. So we want to hear from you. We are also encouraging local residents and businesses with CCTV, any vehicles that may have dash cams, doorbell footage, to check the recordings from yesterday, and contact us if you see anything unusual. I would say that this appears to be a targeted attack, and in light of the increased tensions in our community, we have increased patrols, as mentioned by the Commissioner, to provide visible reassurance and support to the community. To the family and loved ones of Ms. Myers, our hearts are with you during this very difficult time. We are committed to seeking justice on your behalf. We know that many in the community are feeling anxious and shaken. Please know that support is available, and we urge anyone to reach out, or anyone affected to reach out to local support services and contact our community action team who will be out and about on Court Street this week. Anyone with information can contact the Serious Crime Department at 247-1739. I am the Senior Investigating Officer Chief Inspector Derricka Burns, and I can be contacted at 717-0921 or at dburns@eps.bm. Alternatively, you can call Crime Stoppers at 800-8477 or speak to an officer who you know. Again, I want to reiterate the importance of coming forward. Now's the time. We stand here time after time saying, you know, we need people to come forward. This is the only way that we are going to bring justice and stop this crime from happening. So now is the time. We want to hear from you. The two or three people that have come forward are not the only ones that will on Court Street. There are other people around, so we want to hear from you. Again, please come forward if you have any information so we can put this matter together.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions from the media?
Yes, thank you. Travel into TNN News. I'm going to ask either the Commissioner or the Minister, what type of discussions are you having with this new Governor's Council?
Right, so the Governor's Council is a constitutional provision, and there are wide-ranging kinds of discussions, you know, from legislative changes, increasing in support in terms of staffing, additional resources deployed to recruiting. In a nutshell, that kind of overseas assistance, in a nutshell, those are the kinds of topics that are being discussed.
Anything of this gang activity, these shootings, we've had 5 murders, 4 individuals shot in 4 months.
Right.
Is this top priority?
So without a doubt, this is top priority, and in fact, that was kind of the catalyst for these meetings, conversations between the Premier and the Governor that led to the Governor's Council being called to galvanize our response to ensure that we're doing all that we can do to stop this, investigate the crimes, bring offenders to justice, and look even from a longer-term perspective what we can do to stop this type of violence act in our community.
With your assistance from the government, National Security Ministry, what extreme measures might you take to curb this latest activity?
I don't necessarily want to characterize measures as extreme. We want to be proportionate, lawful, and perhaps even lawfully audacious in our actions, and a range of options are being considered. Much of that is still under discussion today. You know, it's very early days in terms of a step change in our response in ensuring that we are proportionate and lawful and doing all that we can to bring offenders to justice.
Is the police concerned for retaliations against other females, i.e. mothers of known gangbangers?
So the reality is retaliation is always a concern whenever there's a shooting. It is, I'm going to say always, gang-connected individuals that are discharging firearms. And it's almost always around sources of tension, and we can expect, going back as far as 2010, that there is a cycle of reprisals that we need to do everything that we can, to suppress and work towards bringing offenders to justice and taking firearms off the street.
Not sure if you gave a description of this individual, the height, possibly. Can you reveal that?
We did. I don't know if you can do a little more.
That might assist the public in identifying.
Yes, we don't have exact height, but as mentioned, the suspect was wearing a black jacket, light colored gray, possibly pants, and a black helmet. That's all we have right now.
Short, tall.
And so the suspect has been described as on the shorter, as a shorter suspect.
Thank you.
Yes.
That would help. My next question is to the Minister. Minister, why has it taken so long for these CC cameras, especially in that point that we just went up after the last shootings? I see CC cameras went up. Why did it take so long, knowing that individuals hang in that area?
I'm assuming it's a deployment issue. Okay, so let me answer that question because the police are really coordinating the deployment of the cameras. So the reality of the matter is that the Court Street cameras were in the second phase of the CCTV project because putting up a camera in the city is particularly a complex issue. So it's not like dropping a pole on the side of the road where there's a lot more latitude when you're thinking about trenching kind of work. It just took some of that time to get those cameras in place. And we prioritize getting the 400 odd views in place and then giving the additional time for the Court Street cameras and indeed many of the cameras within the city center to be installed. So it really is a logistical point. And I'm particularly grateful to Digicel, who are actually working outside of the contract, having weeks ago recognized the importance of this, to continue to progress with installation, even though there's no signed contract in place as yet, just going through all the procurement processes that we need to go through to get that.
Let me add just to that, your reply is that there's been one camera on top of TOCO for the whole of Court Street, between TOCO and that spot by Dundonald Street, and where most of those gangbangers hang. One camera, 100 yards, 200 yards away.
Well, so that one camera was there sort of, historically coming out of the previous one. There was also a camera location which we can see it's been taken down and the pole replaced just outside of Bulldogs. There was another camera on Court Street, but there were issues with power and that connection. And now we've got the two cameras sites that are located on either side of the Dome and Court.
When will they be operational?
So they are actually operational at this moment. And, the real tragedy in this is that they were being put online as that incident unfolded. So it had nothing to do with the obvious incident, but it was just in a series of works. They'd just been installed physically, and the process to bring them online, networking, all that kind of stuff was actually occurring as that incident unfolded.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to stay on that topic of the cameras, why was this considered part of Phase 2 when it's such a high incident area?
So from the beginning, we were working with stakeholders to ensure that Court Street was prioritized, but all of the cameras in the city require specific drawings. Trenching is an issue, getting your power requirements in place. Identifying, selecting a pole that's suitable for, meets the approval of the corporation. All of that activity just took a significant amount of time from the project, whilst all the other camera locations were, being installed.
Now, while the CCTV cameras are installed now, do you have sufficient police officers that are qualified to review the footage and use it?
Yeah, so reviewing the footage and using it is not been a challenge, and I know you're alluding to an issue that's been a bit of a bugbear for us. The challenge that we did have, even though we had all these cameras online, is that when something immediately happened, having sufficiently trained operators to respond to that emergency. So what we had to do, we didn't have them, right? So the challenge there is that the manufacturer has to come and train our trainers so that we can then train other officers. That training was canceled 3-4 times on the part of the manufacturer. It was completed last week, and we are rolling out that training to people that are working in the moment so that they can respond immediately to the footage. In this case, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there was an immediate response. In other incidents that occur perhaps out of normal sort of working hours when there's a lot of police officers on, we call somebody in to do that. So it's the gap between, calling somebody in that we seek to rectify and provide the dispatchers in our dispatching center with the ability to review footage immediately.
Okay. So to what extent is the lack of footage going to impede this investigation? Do you have footage of this individual from any other point?
Yes, there is footage of the individual coming to, leaving. We mentioned going towards Tills Hill. So there is footage available. What we're essentially talking about is the footage from CCTV system at Court and Dundonald that was not available at that time. But we do a CCTV troll of the city, of the area, of the known access, egress routes that the individual took. And we're looking at, for private CCTV, business CCTV, that has and will continue to assist the investigation.
Have investigators established a motive at this stage?
It's far too early to establish a motive, but quite clearly, there will be reasonable lines of inquiry. It's not lost on us that the two men who were tragically murdered on Court Street, that happened on a Tuesday at 3:45. And this most recent incident happened at Tuesday 4:45.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not lost on us that on another Tuesday, 4:45, this has happened. It's not lost on us we call victimology, but so we look at who the victim was, what their associations were, that sort of broader picture, and we examine those kinds of things to determine reasonable lines of inquiry as we move forward. So I don't want to tiptoe around it. Whenever you see the deployment of a firearm, whenever you see a shooting, 99 times out of 100, that's going to be a gang-connected individual, and it's going to be a result of ongoing tensions. The community, sadly, can expect reprisals. This is something that we've seen in our 15-year history of this kind of event, and we're doing all that we can to put things in place to suppress that activity, catch those that are responsible, because that helps to diffuse some of the tension, and do what we can to mitigate and prevent future reprisals.
So it's reasonable to suspect that these incidents are linked?
It is. I don't want to... The short answer to that question is yes. The short answer to that question is yes. But what I don't want, the part I want to avoid is just rampant connections and suspicions of individuals. But there's a source of tension that is connected to a gang that we call Parkside, that operates out of the Court Street area, and there are other sort of rival gangs or factions and tension within those, if you like, two or more groups, and that is the source of tension that is leading to firearms incidents that we see today.
And just lastly, speaking to the victim herself, Ms. Janae Miners, can you say how many wounds she sustained? And
I'm not going to give that detail at this moment in time. It's part of the investigation. At the end of the day, a mother was tragically shot, and I think that that's sufficient detail at this particular point in time.
You also mentioned that resources are stretched, albeit you are having a heightened police presence. To what extent? Can you go more into that?
You mean in terms of the plans that we are, things that we're looking at? The short answer is actually no. It is just premature to just even put out there the art of the possible at this moment in time. I will just sort of, if I had to say anything, we are looking at the probability of some form of overseas assistance to augment investigative capability, analytical capability, technological pieces that the police might be able to use to enhance our surveillance capability.
And who would be financing that?
Who would be financing that? Well, I mean, ultimately, the government sort of, pays all the bills. And I just think it'd be appropriate to mention that the Premier has made it absolutely clear that the needs of the organization will be met. And perhaps the Minister might want to just comment on that aspect of it.
Quickly. Like the Commissioner just said, the Premier has made it clear, Premier actually is also the Finance Minister. So we're in the head of the Finance Minister. He said any resources that the police, the BPS may need will be made available to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Starting from the World Gazette. You said that Ms. Miners was the intended target. On what basis have you drawn that conclusion?
Just from victimology, our understandings of intelligence around tensions, and what was contributing to what was happening at that time within the gang world, if you like. So that's as far as I'm going to go on that particular piece.
Do you believe there are any other targets out there?
Not that we know of, like specifically named individuals, but there will be groups of individuals that are rivals that are involved in detention, and any one of them, it's reasonable to presume that any one of them could be a target.
We have under law the Emergency Powers Act, which can give police extra powers.
Yep.
Has that been engaged? Has it been considered?
It's not been engaged, but it's one of the, when we look at what's the total range of options that we could deploy, that we could use, certainly that will be a part of the discussion. Don't think we're there at that point in time. When you look at other jurisdictions at the deployment of emergency powers, they're in far worse circumstances, but I'm not precluding anything. At this moment in time, just collectively around the Governor's Council, the question is, let's really have a list of all the things that we could possibly do, and then work through that list in terms of what we think is our biggest bang for the buck, what is proportionate, lawful, and necessary to achieve our particular ends. But nothing is off the table, so to speak.
Would you say that Bermuda's in the midst of a national crisis when it comes to violent crime currently?
I think that, the concept of crisis, when does something become a crisis? Clearly this is troubling. Clearly we've been on a trajectory that is not the trajectory that Bermuda wants to be on, and we want to shift that. When you look at some of the other overseas territories and other islands, we're just nowhere near that kind of space. But given our history, given our peace-loving nature, this is shocking to the system, and we need to get on a different path.
Okay, in terms of your armed response unit, what's the status of that at the moment? Is that being ramped up, beefed up?
Yeah, so definitely in response to these types of incidents, there is an effort to very focusedly deploy armed resources to areas and people. So that is ongoing. But there is the armed resource capability, but there's also just the general unarmed policing capability, which delivers the lion's share of our suppression and gang targeting efforts. In addition to covert resources.
Has there been, or is there a permanent police presence in this Court Street area?
So I would say today there is a heightened police presence in that area. We have to always look at how long we can sustain particular efforts in light of some of the other things we do, but quite rightly, that community is going to be upset. Businesses are going to be, apprehensive, fearful, and we need to bring some reassurance and calm to that area, and that heightened police presence is intended to do that.
Would you say it's safe for people to go onto Court Street, on Noble Street?
I still think Bermuda is a very safe jurisdiction. To date, these firearms incidents are connected around gang-involved individuals. There are some elements about this particular incident that give pause. However, Bermuda is still a safe community, I think, when you compare it to certainly other jurisdictions, and I just think.
Do you know if anyone else was in the establishment when this happened?
There's no information about anyone else. It's believed that she was the president at the time.
Yes. In terms of the international partners that you're talking about, are you saying that relationship has not begun yet? These operations with international law enforcement agencies, that sort of thing, hasn't commenced yet?
Okay, so I mean, nothing for nothing. I'm the chair of the Association of Caribbean Commissioners of Police, so I have ongoing discussions, meetings, and dialogues with fellow commissioners of police across the Caribbean region. So those relationships are established. In terms of direct engagement, my engagement has ostensibly been with the UK at this particular point in time. So we would normally start with our UK law enforcement advisor, a gentleman that's well known to the VPS and indeed the other overseas territories. So those conversations are quite advanced.
Can you talk about the BPS's involvement with the gang violence reduction team and its affiliates? Currently, I think you actually are involved in. Yeah, no.
So I mean, we would share information with the gang violence reduction team. Their piece is really around the prevention, intervention, mediation as tensions heat up, and there are opportunities for us to share information that enable those activities without a doubt. And clearly, we've also got a team called IGA, the Interagency Gang Enforcement Team. So there's a number of collaborative efforts, but without a doubt, these recent incidences have helped to galvanize our thinking and ensure that we're doing all that we can in terms of partners and looking at how we can all better work together.
And just finally, you're saying that you're stretched. Mr. Weeks, when you hear the Bermuda Police Service say that their resources are stretched, how can you give them any reassurance? How much is needed?
Well, whatever the police service needs, the government is ready to provide. I think the police service right now is in the process of recruitment. So together we are going to try to get the numbers to where the commissioner and the BPS feels it's a safe number to be at. So the recruitment process is ongoing. But it's not about the financial resources. It is there to assist the police, and the recruitment is ongoing.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. So I think historically there have been challenges around budget. I've been very clear. You've never heard me say that budget is a problem. Our budget is our budget is actually set according to the number of people that we can recruit. So current staffing budget is it's about $70 million, staffing about 405 officers. So that's what we're budgeted for. The reality is in this financial year, we cannot recruit more than that. So there's no point in giving me money that I cannot spend. And as we seek to accelerate recruiting and potentially bring in over the next financial year or earlier if we can, perhaps an additional 44 people, I am confident. I've been given reassurance that the additional budget to meet that will be provided, and I have no reason to think any otherwise. So right now our staffing is 379 against a funded establishment of 405, and yet an agreed establishment of 420. But if I can't recruit those people, there's no point in giving me money for that. And because I have said this multiple times, the number 420 is a number that was derived from several years ago when the government was under some significant financial pressures. It doesn't represent the ideal. And again, the other kind of piece I add to the story is that when I joined this organization 30 odd years ago, we didn't have this complex crime, we didn't have this serious crime, and we had 480 officers. So we're 100 down. That is going to impact the look and feel of policing. I don't think we need 480 officers, and you will be aware that the government and the governor have announced that there will be a security and defense review, and that whole process is designed to right-size the organization, examine all the threats, risks, harms, levels of service that the community, the government want to see, and look at what is the optimum number of police officers, while also looking at opportunities to civilianize, which will reduce the total cost of delivering that service, between sworn police officers and support staff.
Okay, finally, you've given a message of assurance to the community. What's your message to the perpetrators?
My message to the perpetrators is that we're coming after you. We're not sparing any expense or opportunity to bring offenders against justice. And I would, quite frankly, encourage you to just turn yourselves in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner, I wanted to ask this question. I spoke with an eyewitness. Yeah, she's going to come after us. What type of response did the police do after that shooting? Because I was told that the individual was not speeding, drawing attention to himself. The only attention.
So are you talking about
after the shooting yesterday?
Okay, all right.
Person, they went down Bernard Park stretch. Person was getting in their car. They saw a guy riding with a long jacket. Guess what drew the attention? Not the speed, and it seemed that he was just taking his own willy-nilly time, moving away from that scene. What type of response? Meaning you're dragging that of officers that come from outside here to apprehend these individuals.
Mr. Lindsay, I don't have it, like, you're giving me information that I was not aware of. What I can tell you in the immediate aftermath and call for service around a firearms incident, the resources are focused on attending that scene, ensuring it's safe, and then not sometimes, but, sort of fanning those to see where, where the individuals may go. I suspect that maybe, to hear that as an individual sauntered away from discharging a firearm, knowing full well that police are minutes away, I struggle with that. I'm not saying it's not true. I just struggle with that as a principle. But perhaps there was some thought too. If I drive like a bat out of hell, it's going to draw attention to me. I don't know that. We do have CCTV footage of egress from the scene, and obviously speed, we can look at that. Certainly historically, where tensions and individuals and groups were clearly known, we did actually have response plans in place that talked about if this group was targeted, here's where we're going to go. Because, going back to 2015, that was very clear. In this, I've said it before that one of the challenges dealing with this matter in 2025 is who's connected with who can sometimes be unclear. It is not as clear as it was back 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, when you had Parkside and 4-2, and you knew where they lived, you knew exactly who the people are, you knew exactly kind of the routes that we would take. There's some work for us to do to develop that information to be in a similar position as we were historically.
My last question, Commissioner, your response to the cameras on Dundonald Street was a little disingenuous to the families of those men that were shot dead a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning right after their shooting, the cameras went off.
That had nothing to do with that. Like I said, we don't get the opportunity to just say, Digicel, just drop a hole in the ground and pull cameras up. It's planning, drawings have been in place for quite some time.
But shouldn't Court Street should have been a first priority?
You know what?
It's the hottest spot in Bermuda right now. Shouldn't that have been a top priority?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that perspective. There are logistics involved in that particular camera that made it difficult to install those, and we put energy around the entire project to achieve where we are today, knowing that the planning approvals, the building permits, the trenching, that needed to take time. And in fact, your point's not lost on me, right? The point's not lost on me, and I don't want to gloss over the point. I just want to convey that it's not simple. On that actual day when they started to trench, the messages coming back were, we're not sure this is going to be okay. Because when you dig into the ground of a city that's been around for a long, 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 long time, you don't always know what you're going to hit and whether it can support that pull. Having said all that, the point that you're making and driving home is not lost on me. And if I could do it all over again, I'd have that camera up there first. For the good reasons that you mentioned.
And thanks all for your transparency and your patience. Just lastly, how soon realistically can you see specialist officers seconded to Bermuda and the equipment that you need to do your jobs more effectively?
3+ months, three months in that space.
Is that soon enough?
I would like it yesterday, but there really are some logistical pieces that need to be, it's not a simple matter just to bring resources in, like that. So there are some logistics that really do need to be sorted out in order to enable that. Companies need to be contracted with, places for them to stay, and all those hurdles, I'm sure that we will have the assistance to do it, but it just does take some time for that to happen.
You mentioned about the landscape in terms of the gangs that are out there now compared to previously. Used to be Parkside and 42.
Yeah.
What do we have today?
Well,
What's your understanding?
There's probably 11 or so gangs in Bermuda. Some of them historical, over the past 10 years. I'm not sure, like, you just want me to run off the names. We don't normally.
Anything you can give that you think might be helpful?
Yeah, we don't normally, and I have probably said way more today than I traditionally say, and I think I'm gonna draw the line there.
11 gangs.
Think about 11 known active gangs spread across the island.
And how many individuals?
I would say that that's a bit of a complex question to ask. In policing terms, we would look at gang leaders, gang members, and gang associates as a triage about the level of involvement that an individual might have. And I would say if you look at the member and leader category, we're in about an estimated 200 individuals across all those gangs. So that doesn't include associates, that doesn't include friends of friends that may participate, but individuals that are would identify and rivals would identify as, we're looking at in the region of 200 individuals.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.